Okay, this time we are trying to build some kind of authentication with session-based authentication or cookie-based, whatever you want to call it. And by the way, now my NodeMon is fully functioning when I closed my Discord client. So the Discord client was messing with my NodeMon. They were creating so many node servers. I have already a simple server here. It's just providing a one page, which is this root / page, and it's saying that this is a very secret page. You need to be logged in to see this, but we are not logged in, so this is not working. So we are going to need to build something to hide this page behind authentication. As you can see, I have already several packages here. I have a bcrypt, which is used to hash passwords. Then of course I have Express and Express Session, as we are using the session-based authentication. I have the NodeMon, I have a Passport and Passport local, as we are using local authentication, and then I have a POC so that I can build these fancy pages. Let's start by adding two more pages. Login and register, like this. So this register is very simple. We have just title here, and then we have the form. So our form has action called register, and it uses method post. Very simple. And then we are going to need two input fields and labels for them. So this label is for input field username. Just like this, and let's go to that page, which is register. Yeah, it's coming. Then we will need the input. Type equals text, ID equals username, and name equals also username. Very simple. And then we need another one for the password. So password, and then let's copy paste this password word everywhere here. And now we have the fields here. Of course we will also need a button which type equals submit, and then we can have it a word called register there, like this. So in our application we have this register form, and we are only wanting a username and password, and then the user cannot then the user can register. But as this server now is saying that we only have the get part, so let's have also the post part, as we are coming to this post part when we are coming through this form. We are using the post method. So we are not rendering anything here in the post. We are just using the bcrypt to register our new user. So let's try do something. We might end up in errors, so then we are catching those errors. And no. Like this. And then let's first build the password we are wanting to get. So we already have this Express URL encoded, so we can access to those variables that users have been writing into those input fields. Hashed password is our variable, and we are using this bcrypt, and it has a method called hash, and we need to give a parameter that is inside this required body, and there is a password we want to give, and we can give it like a 10 rounds of hashing, so it's quite safe. And this pcrypt, this needs to be a wait. This is a synchronous function, so let's have a wait here, and then of course we need to have the keyword async here. And now we have the hashed password, so we can create a new user, and we are just storing the user here in the array. Let's use that array and push a new user there, so it's just an object like this, and this user will have some kind of ID. Well, if we would use a real database, then we would have a ID field that would be auto increment, so we would not need to worry about that. But here we can just make a fake ID from the date time, from the date and time we have right now, and we are generating it as a string to ID. And then we have a username, which is this requirement body dot username, so it is this one. So the name is username, so we can then access it here. And finally we are going to need the password. And this is going to be the hashed password, not the password that is inside this request object, but this hashed password we just created. And now we have added a new user here, so we can just, for example, console log this users array. And then our response we can just redirect to login page. If we catch an error, then we can just redirect to register page, so the user would register again. So let's try to register our new user, and it did not work. So yes, we have a typo here, so we do not have a array called user, but users. Thus TypeScript would be much more convenient. So now we got our users registered, and this kind of a new user has now been added to that users array. And then we would of course need to have this login functionality, so let's build that next. And we have here the file, so we can just copy paste this and set it is login, and this is going to login, and here we have the keyword login. And now we have the login form, which is also using post method, and the endpoint is this post login, so let's have it here, post login. And we are not rendering anything there. So now we are adding, and it's failing because we do not have anything here. So let's continue with this login. We do not need to have even the request or response here. We can just use the passport here. So with passport, it is providing us a method called authenticate. We are using this local, and then we are giving a parameters. What is this? So the parameters. So if we have a success, then we are redirecting to the index page, which is our secret page. If we have a failure, then we are going to redirect to login page, so the user can try to log in again. And yeah, I think this is enough. So now we have an unknown authentication strategy called local. Now we need to build that. Thus I have this second file called passport config, which we will now have the local strategy here, and it will need to be built here in the initialize method. So this initialize is getting the passport itself first. So let's check that we have the passport here. So here is the passport. So we are giving it to the initialize method. Then what else we are going to need? First, let's build this passport. So that is using new local strategy, which is here. We have required that, and thus we can use it. And by default it is using username as a username and the password as a password field. And guess what, we have a username and password, so we do not need to make any modification there. We are also going to need a authenticated method, authenticate user, and then we are going to need to build this method. We can have it here, const authenticate user. This is a async method. It takes parameters like a username, password, and done, which is called when the authentication is done. First we are going to need user. So we can use a method called getUser by username, but we do not have this kind of a method, but we have this username. So let's have this username here, and let's build this method so we can get it as a parameter. Get username, get user by username, and let's build it here, and we are then providing the method here. So function get user by username. So it is taking username as a parameter, and then it's returning the actual user. So we have the users array, so we are going to find user from there, and we are going to need that the user name equals this username that we are going to get from the parameter. So basically this parameter username has to be this username here, and then we are returning that user, and then we can use that user here in the authentication. And if this user equals null, so this method is providing us null if that user is not found from the array. Then we are just returning this done. We are using that, and we are giving it a null as no errors arose, but we also did not found the actual user, so the authentication was not functioning as we would want it. After that, we know here that we have the user, so we can try to get that. And if we are now awaiting, we have this async. Now we need to have this await because we are using bcrypt. And it has a method called compare, and we are comparing this password that we are getting from the parameter. So the password user has inputted, and we are comparing it to this our user password. So we have the user, and now we can access its variable, member variable password, and we are comparing that if these are the same, and then if they are the same, then we can of course say that this user has now logged in. Let's do that. So let's just write that username logged in, like that. And we should then return this done with the parameters null, as there were no errors, and the user that was now authenticated. Else, so if the password was not correct, then we are just returning this done once again with null, as no errors arose, but also no user was found. So let's return it with false. And then we have the catch clause still to be, and now there is this, now we have an error, some kind of error has arose. So we are returning this done, and there is an error like this. Okay, then we are going to need still 2 more lines of code. So this passport will need to have a method to serialize user, and this is done by having this user done and done null, no errors, user.id. So this ID is the thing that we are using to identify this user. Similarly, we are also going to need deserialize user, and it's pretty much the same, but now we are getting an ID and done, and then this is a bit longer as we are going to return done and no errors, but we are not using the user ID, but we are trying to find get user by ID, and we are providing the ID we have here. So now we would need to have a function called get user by ID. Let's add it here. So as a third parameter we can get method function get user by ID, and then we need to also build that function here, but of course it's pretty similar than this get user by username. Now we are getting user by ID. So this is ID, the parameter, and then the user ID needs to be the ID. And then here in the initializing we are providing also this third method here. So let's see. We are getting a lot of errors. Unhandled promise rejection warning. And once again, these are users, not just user. We could send some messages, but as this is very simple application, we are not sending message, but we are providing some kind of a note to the log that user not found. And here we have the password incorrect. Let's try it again. So user was not found, so we do not have any user. We need to first register a user, as this is clearing the so-called database every time. So we can actually take this here. No, now I actually killed my nodemon server, but I have the user, and let's add this user here. So now we have a one user in our database, this asked user. We can use that all the time. And now let's log in with asked, and it did not fail. It said already that user has now logged in, so we have a some kind of other error. Login sessions require session support. So did you forget to use express session middleware? That was exactly what I did. I did not include it here, so I have already forgot that one. So let's initialize that first. So we have this few initializations here. We have the view engine, and we have the URL encoded, but we do not have the session. We actually, I think we have the sessions here. Yeah, we have the session variable, the object, but it has not been initialized. So let's do that. And to this session we need to give a few parameters. First is secret, so this should be some kind of a environment variable, etc. But we can have just very secret hash there. Then we are using this resave, and we are setting that false. We are not resaving the sessions every time, and we are also checking that if we are saving uninitialized sessions, that we are not also doing like this. And then we would also need to have these initialize settings for the passport. So let's initialize them. So we have this passport and called its initialize method we have been building. Similarly, we are using this passport session like this. Let's try it again. Okay, now we are in the very secret page already. So this is now working so well that we actually got access to that page. And the reason for that is that we have no any restrictions. You can access to it any time as you wish. Let's try to log in again. And now it's saying that user asked is logged in. Let's see what happens here. Now we should have some kind of a cookie. So let's see, here we have a cookies, and we have a cookie here. So this cookie is telling, so its name was connect session ID, and it just have a value, some kind of a hash telling that we are now logged in. And we could actually have this, so we are using this index.book. Let's give it a parameter called name, and let's use this request username. So passport is already providing us this user variable here, so we can directly use that. Then let's go here, and we have actually here we have used this. So now this name variable we have set here should be provided here, and we did not get it. So we need to first log in. Yes, now it's saying us hello asked, which was our username, and this is very secret page. You need to be logged in to see this first. Now I can refresh this page. It is working very well. And then if I go to the cookie part and remove this cookie, now we are not anymore logged in. So the cookie was deleted. We are not logged in. We cannot see the page. Although there is no any restrictions, but this is now failing because this variable is not set, as this username is not available. So let's build this so that it would not fail, because this kind of a failing is not what we want. Let's have a middleware here so we can check that if there is an authentication already done. So we are getting a new function, check authenticated, which we need to provide. And as this is a middleware function, it is taking request, it is taking response, and it is taking this next step. So first we just check that if we have request, and once again passport is providing us a lot, so is authenticated method is it is already there. And if we are authenticated, then we are just returning this next, so we can continue, and otherwise we can just redirect to the login page. Let's see. Now we are here in the secret page, and if we are going and removing the cookie, no, not there. Let's remove the cookie and refresh the page. Now we are redirected to login. We are just this is now the method we could use anywhere here to check that if the user is authenticated, and then we can show this kind of a page, or some kind. We could have a /secret page, and we just use this middleware check authenticated to see if the user has access to that page. So this is working okay. Yeah, we can still access to the register page and login page if we are logged in, which is something that we probably do not want. So let's see, I'm now logged in, and then I can still access to this login page, which is strange. So let's remove that option. So let's build a second middleware called check not authenticated. And we can actually use this also here in the register, so we do not want to get to the register page neither, or try to register if we are logged in. So let's put this here everywhere, and then let's build the actual function. Guess what? This is pretty similar to this. So first we are checking if the user is authenticated, then we are just redirecting the user to the index page, and if he or she is not authenticated, then we can continue to those other pages. So let's see. Let's log in, and we are getting an error. We are getting an error because we do not have these parameters here. So now we are logged in. Let's try to go to login page. It's failing us. Yeah, I'm missing a return keyword here. Let's try again. Let's log in. Yeah. And let's try to go to this login page. It did redirect us to the index page, and let's try to go to the register page. It did redirect us to the index page, so it is working. But we are still missing one feature, that is logged out, because now we are logged in but we cannot log out. Of course we could manually always go to and delete the cookie, but that is not user friendly. So let's go to this index page and let's add just a simple form there, button to get us logged out. So form action equals log out, method equals post, and inside this form we will only have button, its type equals submit, and it has a word called logout, like this. Now we have a logout button, and then we need to add the functionality there. So let's copy paste this login here and let's put it here, and we will have a logout, and this was actually post call. We could basically check not authenticated If we are not authenticated, then we cannot log out. So if we are not authenticated, then we cannot log out. And here what we are doing, we are just using this logout method that the passport is providing us. And inside that, then we should redirect. But first we might get some errors. And if there is an error, then we are returning next error, and otherwise we can just redirect to login page. So now we are getting in. Hey, I'm working. Then we are getting out. I do not have any more access to this index page. It's just redirecting us to the login page, as we do not have right to that index page. So let's see what we have still here. So the application still has the cookie, this session cookie, but as we are removing the session here on the server side, then we are not able to access anymore, for example, this our index page. So how this session or cookie based authentication is actually working. So we are logging in, so the server is providing a client, thus browser, a cookie or a value that is then stored in a cookie. And every time the browser is loading this page, it is sending this cookie to the server as a side payload. And the server is then checking if that cookie or the value in the cookie is matching the value we have in the server. In the end, it will compare the password hash to the hash that we have in our database or in our variable or whatever we are using to store our users. And then it is using these authenticate methods. For example, we can use this passport library, which is very handy and it's taking care of plenty of things. If the passport is providing us green sign, okay, we are logged in, then we can just have this simple check authenticated method that is then providing us further, or if the authentication is not functioning as it should, then we are just redirecting the user to some other page. This is very simple, and this is how the authentication of web pages have been functioning for the last almost 30 years. But this does not scale up that well. For example, this cookie is only valid in our local host port 7000. If we would have a different server, load balancers or etc. that would have different addresses or different ports, then this cookie would be invalid. So this kind of authentication method does not scale up that well. So if you are building a Twitter, Facebook, Mastodon or something like that as a service, then you cannot lean on just to have a session-based authentication. But if you have just a smaller system that has, let's say, 1000 users, you are providing an interface to provide some kind of windmill power statistics, then this kind of a simple session-based authentication is completely okay. There are no issues with that.